Today, we are looking at one of the most dramatic and symbolic moments of the war so far, a moment that stunned military analysts, rattled Moscow, and sent a powerful message across the world. Ukraine waited, it watched, it calculated the timing, and just as Vladimir Putin prepared to deliver what many expected to be another confident victory speech, Ukrainian drones roared into action, blasting key Russian military bases in occupied Crimea. What happened next was not just a military strike, but a psychological earthquake. For months, Crimea had been portrayed by the Kremlin as untouchable. Since its annexation in 2014, Russia had turned the peninsula into a heavily fortified military hub, packed with air defense systems, naval facilities, ammunition depots, and airbases. Russian state media repeatedly claimed that Crimea was completely secure, protected by layers of S-300 and S-400 air defense systems, electronic warfare units, and constant patrols. The message was clear: Crimea was safe, Crimea was Russian, and Ukraine could do nothing about it. But war has a way of humiliating overconfidence. As Putin prepared to speak to the nation, expected to highlight Russian successes and reassure the public that everything was under control, Ukraine made its move. Multiple drones penetrated deep into Crimea, striking major military targets with precision and coordination. Explosions lit up the night sky. Fires burned at airbases believed to host fighter jets and bombers. Ammunition depots erupted, sending shockwaves and plumes of smoke visible from miles away. Air defense systems that were supposed to stop such attacks either failed or were overwhelmed. The timing was no accident. Ukraine's leadership understands that modern warfare is not only about territory and weapons, but also about perception, morale, and narrative control. Striking Crimea at the exact moment Putin was preparing a victory speech turned his message into a contradiction. Instead of triumph, the world saw vulnerability. Instead of strength, chaos. Instead of control, panic. Russian social media channels were flooded with videos filmed by locals. You could hear explosions echoing in the distance. You could see anti-aircraft fire streaking across the sky. Some residents filmed fires burning near military installations, while others recorded the sound of secondary explosions, a clear sign that ammunition depots had been hit. These were not small or symbolic attacks. They were operationally significant strikes aimed at degrading Russia's military capabilities in the region. Crimea is not just symbolic, it is strategic. From Crimea, Russia launches missile strikes across southern Ukraine. From Crimean airbases, Russian aircraft take off to bomb Ukrainian cities and frontline positions. The Black Sea Fleet, based in Sevastopol, plays a key role in blockades, missile launches, and regional power projection. By hitting Crimea, Ukraine is not just making a political statement. It is targeting the logistical heart of Russian operations in the south. What made this attack even more shocking was how deeply the drones penetrated. Crimea is hundreds of kilometers from Ukrainian-controlled territory. To reach these targets, the drones had to evade radar, bypass electronic warfare systems, and survive layered air defenses. This suggests significant improvements in Ukrainian drone technology, navigation, coordination, and possibly intelligence support. Whether domestically produced or modified with foreign assistance, these drones demonstrated that distance is no longer a guarantee of safety for Russian forces. Russian officials, as expected, tried to downplay the attacks. Statements were released claiming that most drones had been intercepted and that damage was minimal. But actions speak louder than words. Flights were suspended at Crimean airports. Roads near military installations were blocked. Emergency services were deployed in large numbers. And, perhaps most telling of all, Russian state television avoided showing detailed footage, instead switching to vague reports and unrelated programming. Meanwhile, independent analysts began piecing together the damage using satellite imagery and open-source intelligence. Burn marks on runways, destroyed aircraft shelters, and damaged infrastructure told a different story than the official narrative. Some reports suggested that several aircraft may have been damaged or destroyed. Others pointed to significant losses in ammunition and fuel storage. Even if exact numbers remain unclear, the impact was undeniable. For Ukraine, this was a statement of intent. It showed that no Russian base, no matter how far from the front lines, is beyond reach. It demonstrated that Ukraine can strike when and where it chooses. And perhaps most importantly, it proved that Russia's claims of total control over Crimea are no longer credible. This has profound implications not just for the battlefield, but for diplomacy, public opinion, and the future of the war. Inside Russia, the psychological effect cannot be overstated. Crimea has long been presented as a symbol of national pride, a returned territory that proved Russia's resurgence as a great power. Any threat to Crimea challenges that narrative directly. When ordinary Russians see explosions in a place they were told was perfectly safe, questions begin to form. If Crimea is vulnerable, what about other regions? If air defenses fail there, where do they actually work? For Ukrainian citizens, the strikes had a very different emotional impact. After months of enduring missile attacks, blackouts, and destruction, seeing Ukrainian drones strike back deep inside occupied territory provided a powerful morale boost. It reinforced the belief that Ukraine is not just defending, but actively shaping the course of the war. It reminded people that patience, innovation, and determination can level the playing field even against a larger adversary. Internationally, the message was equally clear. Ukraine is becoming increasingly capable, increasingly confident, and increasingly effective in using asymmetric tactics. Drones, once considered supplementary tools, have become central to modern warfare. They are cheaper than missiles, harder to intercept, and highly adaptable. Ukraine's success with drones is now being studied by militaries around the world. The attack also raises serious questions about Russia's air defense strategy. Systems like the S-400 are marketed globally as some of the most advanced in the world. Yet repeated drone strikes in Crimea, Moscow, and other regions suggest significant weaknesses. Whether due to saturation, electronic warfare, human error, or systemic flaws, these defenses are clearly not foolproof. This could have long-term consequences for Russia's arms exports and military reputation. Another critical aspect of this operation was intelligence. To hit major bases effectively, Ukraine needed accurate, up-to-date information about target locations, defenses, and operational patterns. This points to a sophisticated intelligence network, combining satellite data, reconnaissance drones, intercepted communications, and possibly local resistance networks within Crimea itself. The idea that occupied territory might contain active Ukrainian sympathizers is deeply unsettling for Moscow. As for Putin's victory speech, the timing could not have been worse. Instead of commanding attention with confidence and authority, he was forced to speak under the shadow of burning bases and exploding depots. Even if he avoided mentioning the attacks directly, their presence loomed large. Every claim of strength, every assertion of control, rang hollow against the reality unfolding in Crimea. This is the new phase of the war. Ukraine is no longer limited to reacting to Russian moves. It is setting traps, choosing moments, and delivering blows designed to maximize both physical and psychological damage. Waiting for a symbolic moment, like a major speech, and then striking sends a message that Ukraine understands the importance of timing and narrative. It shows strategic maturity and confidence. For Russia, the challenges are mounting. Protecting a vast territory from drone attacks is extremely difficult and resource-intensive. Every base, every depot, every airfield becomes a potential target. Air defense systems must be spread thinner. Troops must remain on constant alert. The cost, both financial and psychological, continues to rise. Looking ahead, strikes like this suggest that Crimea will remain a focal point of Ukrainian operations, not necessarily through large-scale ground assaults, but through persistent, precise, and unpredictable attacks that slowly degrade Russian capabilities. Each successful strike forces Russia to divert resources, repair damage, and reassure a nervous public. In the end, this was more than just drones hitting bases. It was a carefully calculated message delivered at the most embarrassing possible moment for the Kremlin. Ukraine waited, Ukraine watched, and when the time was right, it struck. As the smoke rose over Crimea, one thing became clear to the world. The narrative of Russian invincibility is cracking, and Ukraine is proving again and again that patience and precision can be as powerful as tanks and missiles. Stay tuned, because if this attack is any indication, the next chapters of this war will be even more unpredictable and even more decisive.